This telegram, addressed to President Roosevelt, shows how the prospect of resettling displaced Jews from Nazi-occupied Europe aroused similar prejudices among American anti-Semites as those overseas. Claims of media domination, communist sympathizing, and warmongering about Jews violently driven from their homes mirror exactly the propaganda used by Nazis to justify their crimes. This general anti-Jewish sentiment contributed to the ineffectiveness of visa applications and delayed the flow of information for relatives of Jewish refugees. Under the Mandate, Palestine ceased to be solely a Jewish enterprise or a purely British undertaking. America and the whole world has a stake in this great experiment in purposeful nation building. Robert F. Wagner, 1938. To maintain the appearance of compassion for refugees while still keeping them out of the country, the American Congress decided to unite with British colonial powers in the Middle East in order to construct a Jewish homeland by taking control of land in Palestine and reserving it for Jewish settlements and development. This plan was widely popular with American Jews and non-Jews alike, as both parties saw the combined opportunities for ethnic separation and economic investment as a new form of global political power without downside, except for the Palestinians, whose opinions were not a part of the discussion. Just as long as a single lynching can take place in the United States and the perpetrators allowed not only to go scot-free, but also are not even questioned about their crimes, just so long will the spirit of terrorism, which lynching is designed to create and perpetuate, in order that not only Negroes but whites as well are restrained from doing anything about wages, hours, voting, justice in the courts, and the like, continue. Walter White, 1940. African Americans in the southern states were legally discriminated against by local law enforcement officials that refused to investigate lynching crimes. When the debate to federally outlaw lynching cover-ups reached Congress, prominent Southern senators went on long tirades about the importance of states' rights to racist policies and how black political organizers were secretly communist anti-Americans. This baseless rhetoric hardened civil rights organizations like the NAACP to further pursue anti-lynching laws. Representation under the law was not the only way that Southern states sought to disenfranchise black citizens. Poll taxes, literacy tests for voting, and segregation policies served to undermine the political rights of African Americans. As World War II required more and more economic involvement by the American people, the War Labor Board enforced discriminatory hiring practices for black workers. The blatant similarities to early Nazi economic pogroms targeting Jews resulted in public outcry over these issues, as it was believed that America should become a better example of a free democracy in contrast to the growing power of fascism. Mexican migrant farm workers were a vital part of the American military-industrial complex, as the skilled labor necessary to grow food crops for deployed soldiers could not be supplied by Americans. Despite this dire need, farming companies often hired immigrants who crossed into America illegally, without documentation, because they could be paid lower wages and fewer amenities provided, with no questions asked. Legal options for immigrant workers through the Mexican authorities were unreliable, expensive, and often had long backlogs. Earning better lives for their families was a risky business proposition for migrant farmers, who were sometimes deported back to Mexico before a full season of work was done, with no legal recourse. I believe that an investigation would establish that a considerable number of the residents of Nogales, Sonora, Mexico, are illiterate and, therefore, to refuse to renew crossing guard privileges for those individuals who cannot pass a literacy test would simply mean that a large number of Mexican citizens who have heretofore depended upon retail stores in Nogales, Arizona, will be unable to purchase essential supplies from these stores from now on. Senator Carl T. Hayden, 1942. Immigration policies were later introduced that required literacy tests in order to qualify for border crossing cards. This was designed to discriminate against the poor, illiterate migrant farmers that were the primary seekers of work in the U.S. If legal immigration was impossible due to a literacy exam, then those forced to illegally enter America to find work would be at the mercy of the farming industry and local Border Patrol law enforcement officers.